For decades, Chanel stores felt untouchable, permanent, immune. But something's happening that Chanel won't announce. Locations are quietly shutting down, not with press releases or liquidation sales, just locked doors where elegant boutiques used to be. What is happening to Chanel? The pattern nobody talks about. The 18th of January, 2025. Chanel's Atelier Beauté in New York City closed after 6 years. No fanfare, no final sale. Just a TikTok from influencer Guerlain Kaur warning people the doors were shutting for good. The location had been a 6-year experiment in accessible luxury. Chanel beauty products in a dedicated boutique format, lower entry point than handbags, designed to capture younger buyers testing the brand. It failed. Or more precisely, it succeeded at something Chanel no longer wants, attracting customers who can't afford the handbags. That same month, something else happened. Chanel pulled its products from the Saks Fifth Avenue location at Canal Place in New Orleans. Timing wasn't coincidental. Saks Global, the entity controlling Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, and Bergdorf Goodman, was weeks away from filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Chanel saw it coming and evacuated. But here's what Saks' bankruptcy revealed. Chanel was among the top creditors owed money. Hundreds of millions in unpaid invoices across the department store empire. Chanel had been supplying products, department stores weren't paying, and the whole system was collapsing. Now connect those dots with a statement buried in Chanel's 2023 operational updates. Completed move to concession model in fashion. That phrase sounds technical, boring. It's actually bigger than you think. The concession model means Chanel no longer sells wholesale to department stores. Instead, Chanel operates shop-in-shop spaces inside department stores, but controls inventory, staffing, and merchandising. Which means when that department store struggles, Chanel can withdraw immediately without being trapped in failing retail spaces. And they have been. You'll see the pattern when you look at what's actually closing. Department store concessions in cities without standalone Chanel stores. Regional luxury malls dependent on tourist traffic. Secondary locations where foot traffic skews aspirational rather than ultra-wealthy. Chanel avoids the word closures. They use brand elevation, strategic optimization, portfolio refinement. They are closing stores, but just not admitting it publicly. Because luxury brands never say, demand dropped. They say, we're refining. They frame retreat as advancement. And if you're not watching the specific addresses disappearing from store locators, you'd never notice the pattern. This isn't random downsizing. It's strategic filtration. Chanel is deciding which customers still matter and which locations no longer serve the brand's positioning. And these decisions reveal an uncomfortable truth about where luxury retail is headed. Why luxury stores became a liability. Saks Global doesn't owe Chanel alone. One lawyer representing 30 suppliers said clients were owed between $600,000 and $10 million each. For some, Saks had been their only major retail account. But Chanel and Kering, parent company of Gucci and Saint Laurent, topped the creditor list. Together, they are owed approximately $225 million. They'll be fine. They have standalone stores, direct-to-consumer channels, negotiating leverage. Smaller brands without their own retail infrastructure, many will close permanently. That's the department store problem in 2026. They're not partners anymore, they're liabilities. Physical retail used to make sense for luxury. Department stores provided access to wealthy customers in cities too small for standalone boutiques. The economics worked when department stores were stable, paid promptly, and attracted qualified foot traffic. None of that is true anymore. Luxury retail economics shifted dramatically post-pandemic. Staffing costs surged 30 to 40% in major cities. Security risks escalated. Smash and grab robberies targeting luxury became so common brands hired private security details. Insurance premiums tripled. Foot traffic changed too. Luxury shopping centers saw overall visitation decline 4% year over year in 2024. But the mix shifted more dramatically than volume. Data from Placer.ai, tracking 3 key luxury centers, Americana Manhasset, Bal Harbour Shops, Highland Park Village, showed ultra-wealthy families now comprise 20% of visitors, up from previous years. Meanwhile, near-urban diverse families, young urban singles, and city hopefuls declined sharply. Basically, luxury retail is serving fewer, wealthier customers. The aspirational middle-tier buyer who used to browse, save, and eventually purchase, they are disappearing. That creates a problem for any location that can't generate enough ultra-wealthy transactions to justify operational costs. Chanel feels this more acutely than most luxury brands for one specific reason: no e-commerce for handbags. You cannot buy a Chanel classic flap online, not from Chanel's website, not from authorized retailers. The only way to purchase Chanel's core profit driver is walking into a physical store. That means every Chanel location must justify its existence through in-store transactions. No online basket to subsidize underperforming stores. No digital sales, offsetting physical retail losses. Each location either generates profit or it doesn't. And when it doesn't, Chanel closes it. But here's the insight most people miss. A store that doesn't reinforce exclusivity actively damages the brand. If you can walk into any regional mall and buy Chanel, is Chanel still exclusive? If Chanel sits alongside Michael Kors and Coach in a mid-tier department store, what does that signal about brand positioning? Luxury depends on perceived scarcity, access control, the feeling that ownership signifies belonging to an elite group. Too much availability undermines that perception. For Chanel, too much access is worse than no access at all, which explains why they're not just closing unprofitable stores. They're closing stores that attract the wrong customers, even if those stores make money. But Chanel have got a trick up their sleeve. The geography tells the truth. While Chanel closes secondary locations, they're simultaneously investing hundreds of millions in flagship properties. In November 2025, Chanel opens its largest Canadian boutique inside Holt Renfrew, Yorkdale. The space occupies 11% of the entire department store's square footage. It's designed to function like a standalone boutique with its own double-height facade opening directly into the mall's main corridor. Industry sources expect this location to generate $100 million annually. That would make it the highest-performing Chanel location in Canada, roughly double the sales volume of their standalone Yorkville Avenue flagship. In March 2026, in Vancouver's Oak Ridge Park, another massive two-level boutique would open. Similar scale to Toronto, similar investment. Simultaneously, Chanel closed or downsized locations in secondary markets across North America. See the pattern? Fewer stores, bigger flagships, more theatrical experiences, higher barriers to entry. The strategy mirrors what Louis Vuitton executed with the Louis, their cruise ship-shaped Shanghai flagship that draws crowds even from non-buyers through exhibitions, cafes, and cultural events. Louis Vuitton is opening a branded hotel on the Champs-Élysées in 2026. Hermès opened stores in Scottsdale and Nashville, continuing controlled expansion into ultra-wealthy enclaves. These aren't stores, they're luxury monuments, destinations, status symbols themselves. And here's what that means for access. If you don't live near a major flagship, your ability to physically experience and purchase Chanel just disappeared. It used to be that you could drive 2 hours to a regional department store, try on bags, and make a purchase. That's ending. Chanel is consolidating into ultra-luxury hubs where real estate costs $1,000 plus per square foot, and the only people shopping are those for whom price is irrelevant. Beverly Hills, Miami Design District, Fifth Avenue, Rodeo Drive, Madison Avenue. Everywhere else, you're on your own. It seems like Chanel is dividing customers into two categories: those who live in major luxury markets and can access flagship experiences, and everyone else, for whom Chanel is becoming functionally unavailable without significant travel. This isn't about store count, it's about customer filtration. Chanel is redesigning the luxury experience to exclude casual browsers, aspirational buyers, and anyone who thinks saving up for a classic flap is an achievement. Because in Chanel's new model, if you have to save for it, you're not the customer anymore. Even this next thing they did reflects this sentiment. The middle-class luxury buyer is the real casualty. In August 2025, Chanel implemented another price increase across the board. The medium classic flap jumped from around $10,800 to $11,300. The fourth major increase in 3 years. Forums erupted. Purse blog comment sections filled with fury. One commenter: "I must have spent over $300K between 2022-2024. I'm done. You can only have so many classic flaps in different sizes and colors." The fatigue is so real. Another, a former Chanel sales associate. I sold Chanel handbags from 2014 up until 2021. The quality has changed. The leathers are harder and more dull. They are definitely not worth $12,500. Some of it is the same quality you'd find at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. These aren't price-sensitive complainers. These are multi-purchase loyalists who spent hundreds of thousands, the exact customers brands typically protect. Chanel ignores them because they're not the target anymore. If anyone doubted this, the pricing trajectory makes this explicit. In 2019, Chanel Medium Classic Flap retailed for $5,800. In 2024, it was $10,800. In 2025, it was $11,300. That's a 95% increase in 6 years, nearly doubled. US inflation over the same period was approximately 20 to 25%. Chanel outpaced inflation by 70+ percentage points. In 2021 alone, the most historic year for luxury price increases, Chanel raised prices about 3 times in 12 months. The classic 11.12 jumped from $6,500 in January to $8,800 by December. Chanel's 2025 increase hit every major category. Classic flap bags went 4 to 5% up. Boy bags went up 4 to 5%. Chanel 19 collections saw similar increases. Only the Chanel 25 line stayed flat, an exception that proves the intentionality, when Chanel chooses not to raise prices on one line while increasing everything else. That's not oversight, that's strategy. Industry analysts project, if current trends continue, the medium classic flap will exceed $20,000 within 5 years. Some models will hit that mark faster. At $20,000, Chanel competes directly with Hermes Birkins and Kellys. That's not accidental positioning, that's the goal. But here's what makes this different from normal inflation-adjusted pricing. Chanel raised prices while profits fell 30% in 2024-2025. Traditional retail logic says, when demand softens, you don't raise prices. You discount, promote, maintain accessibility to preserve volume. Chanel is doing the opposite, raising prices into declining demand. Because they're not trying to preserve volume. They're trying to reset the customer base to ultra-wealthy buyers for whom price is irrelevant. It's the Hermes playbook, and it's working. The person who saves $200 a month for 2 years to afford a classic flap, that's now a 5-year savings plan. The young professional who buys their first Chanel to mark a career milestone, that milestone better come with a $15,000 bonus. The aspirational buyer who views Chanel as the ceiling of what they might someday afford, the ceiling just moved to the penthouse. And it's intentional. Chanel implemented purchase quotas at every store. You can buy 1 quota bag per month. 1. If you buy a mini flap in January and want a small classic flap in February, denied. Come back in March. Madison Avenue Couture, a respected reseller, explicitly markets this as a selling point. Madison Avenue Couture imposes no quotas or restrictions on your purchases. The majority of our Chanel bags are store-fresh, pristine, and ready to ship. Think about what that means. Chanel intentionally prevents customers from buying multiple bags, even customers with money willing to spend. Why? Because scarcity creates desire. Frustration creates obsession. The harder something is to obtain, the more people want it. But quotas do something else. They eliminate casual purchases. Impulse buys. The "I'll grab this while I'm here" transaction. You have to plan your Chanel purchase. Schedule it. Strategize which bag to prioritize. That transforms buying from transaction into ritual, from commerce into privilege. And every store closure amplifies that effect. Fewer stores means longer distances to travel, fewer opportunities to browse, reduced chances of spontaneous purchases, which reduces casual buyers, first-time buyers. The saving up customers who used to be Chanel's middle tier, they're being systematically excluded. Not through explicit rejection, but through design, through pricing, through scarcity, through geographic inaccessibility. The result is luxury becoming colder, narrower, more exclusive by design. This isn't about Chanel losing customers. It's about choosing which customers no longer matter, and the ones being excluded thought they were the target market. They weren't. They were just tolerated until Chanel decided they could afford to be more selective. Why Chanel won't admit this publicly? Virginie Viard departed Chanel in June 2024 after 5 years as creative director. Under her leadership, the brand posted strong commercial performance through 2023. Then profits declined 30% in 2024 and continued falling through 2025. Chanel attributed the decline to increased marketing investment and broader slowdown in the global luxury sector. Notice what they didn't say. Demand dropped. Customers stopped buying. We're struggling. Luxury brands never admit weakness publicly. Ever. When LVMH, owner of Louis Vuitton and Dior, posted fashion and leather goods revenue declines of 8 to 9% and profit drops of 22% in the first half of 2025, they blamed disrupted geopolitical and economic environment. When Kering's Gucci dropped 23.6% in brand value, they announced leadership changes and talked about strategic repositioning. When luxury purchase consideration dropped 25% in the first 4 months of 2025, according to YouGov data, brands responded by raising prices further, because luxury operates on perception, not reality. If Chanel admits demand is weak, what happens? Customers assume the brand is losing relevance. Resale buyers shift to other brands, expecting Chanel's value to decline. Shareholders panic. Analysts downgrade. But if Chanel says, "We're refining our retail footprint to enhance brand exclusivity," that sounds strategic. Intentional. Strong. Even if the underlying reality is identical, stores closing because they're not profitable, the narrative matters more than the truth. Silence becomes strategy. Gradual exits become optimization. Necessary retreats become brand elevation. And it works because luxury customers want to believe, want to feel like they're buying into something exclusive, not something struggling. So Chanel closes stores without announcements, withdraws from department stores without press releases, implements quotas without official policy statements. They let TikTok influencers discover the closures, let industry publications speculate, let analysts connect dots, but they never confirm the broader pattern. Because admitting you're closing hundreds of locations, even if it's strategic, carries implications luxury brands can't afford. It suggests vulnerability, market weakness, reduced relevance. Better to stay silent and let each closure feel isolated rather than systematic. In luxury, silence is often louder than announcements. What brands don't say reveals more than what they do. And Chanel's silence about store closures is deafening once you notice, and it's not just them closing stores. This isn't just Chanel. This is the new luxury retail reality. Macy's announced 150 store closures by the end of 2026, on top of 50 closed in 2024 and 66 inches, 2025. That's 266 locations eliminated from one chain. Each closure removes luxury access from mid-tier markets. US retail overall saw 8,200 closures in 2025, up 12% from 2024. Every industry hemorrhaged locations. In the pharmaceutical industry, Walgreens closed 1,200 over 3 years, CVS shuttering 1,170 since 2022. In the discount retailers sector, 11 closed 500-plus locations. In the fast food segment, Wendy is planning 200 to 350 closures through 2026. But luxury's contraction follows different logic than general retail struggles. Telsey Advisory Group's 2026 projections explicitly forecast net closings in luxury and department store sectors. Not slowdown, not stabilization, negative growth. Yet brands controlling their own distribution, Louis Vuitton, Hermès, Dior, continue performing. LVMH posted 1% Q3 2025 growth despite broader sector chaos. Hermès's brand value surpassed LVMH's market cap for the first time, driven entirely by controlled scarcity and flagship experiences. The divergence couldn't be clearer. Luxury brands operating standalone stores thrive or stabilize. Department stores carrying luxury brands collapse. Brands dependent on department store distribution get trapped in the wreckage. Chanel's 2023 move to pure concession models, where they control inventory, staffing, and merchandising, even inside department stores, positioned them years ahead. They saw Saks bankruptcy coming before Saks did. Other luxury houses are scrambling to catch up. The strategies all move in one direction, away from accessibility toward experiential exclusivity. Dior opened its first US spa on Madison Avenue in summer 2025. Not a store, a spa. Charging $600 plus for facials that subtly introduce customers to skincare lines before transitioning them toward handbags. Louis Vuitton built the Louis in Shanghai, as I have talked about earlier. In 2026, we'll see Louis Vuitton's first branded hotel on Paris's Champs-Élysées. Hermès reopened Carré H as a gallery celebrating craft and design. Ralph Lauren operates 40-plus Ralph's Coffee cafes globally, alongside destination restaurants like the Polo Bar. A London Polo Bar opens 2,028 inches, the old Vogue building. These aren't stores. They're luxury ecosystems, cultural landmarks, experiential destinations that make ownership feel like membership rather than transaction. And they're all brutally exclusive. You don't stumble into a Louis Vuitton hotel. You don't casually browse a Dior spa. You don't walk past Ralph's Paris location without recognizing it requires a certain tax bracket to enter comfortably. Department stores democratized luxury. They brought Chanel to Des Moines, Gucci to Tulsa, Dior to Omaha. They let middle-income buyers window shop, touch products, and dream about eventual ownership. That infrastructure is dying. Barney's closed permanently. The opening ceremony shut its flagships. Fred Segal closed all locations. Saks filed bankruptcy. Neiman Marcus filed bankruptcy twice in 5 years. And luxury brands aren't mourning. They're not scrambling to save department stores. They're watching the collapse with quiet satisfaction because every department store closure makes standalone flagships more valuable. Chanel isn't the exception. They're the clearest signal. The brand that moves earliest and most decisively. When Chanel closes stores, others follow. When Chanel raises prices aggressively, competitors match. What Chanel does today becomes industry standard tomorrow, and right now, Chanel is systematically reducing access. The resale market tells a different story. While Chanel tightens access at retail, something fascinating is happening in the resale market. Pre-owned Chanel bags now trade 15 to 40% below retail prices for models in excellent or unused condition. Madison Avenue Couture and similar resellers explicitly market this discount. Buy store fresh, pristine Chanel without quotas or wait lists. That shouldn't be possible. If Chanel's scarcity strategy was working perfectly, resale values should hold firm or appreciate. Instead, they're softening. Why? Because aspirational buyers are exiting the market entirely. The person who used to save for years and buy one classic flap retail, they're not switching to resale. They're leaving luxury altogether. Meanwhile, ultra-wealthy buyers Chanel wants? They don't buy pre-owned, ever. Status signaling requires buying retail at full price, walking into a boutique, being recognized, building a relationship with sales associates. Pre-owned carries no social currency in circles where Chanel matters most. The resale market is filled with bags from two groups: flippers who bought during the pandemic hoping to profit and discover the market shifted, and middle-class buyers liquidating collections because they can't justify saving another 5 years for the next bag. One Purseblog commenter captured this perfectly. "I sold my entire Chanel collection and moved to Grand Seiko and Omega. I'm done paying $11,000 for bags with declining quality." That's not just one person. Forums show systematic exodus. Women who spent $200,000 to $300,000 on Chanel between 2020-2024 are selling collections and moving to either ultra-luxury Hermès or value-luxury contemporary brands offering similar quality at half the price. Chanel loses both segments. The middle-tier buyer leaves luxury entirely. The aspirational ultra-luxury buyer goes to Hermès, where scarcity is backed by genuine craftsmanship rather than artificial quotas. And Chanel doesn't care, because the remaining customers, ultra-wealthy buyers for whom $11,300 is meaningless, spend more per person than the previous 3 customer segments combined. The logic is simple. Serve 1,000 customers who buy one $5,000 bag every 3 years, which would be $1.67 million annually. Serve 100 customers who buy 5 $11,300 bags per year, $5.65 million annually. Fewer customers, smaller footprint, lower operational costs, higher profit margins. That's the future Chanel is building, and resale market dynamics prove it's working exactly as intended. Let's project forward 5 years by analyzing current trends. At current growth rates, by 2031, Chanel's flagship bag will cost what used to buy a Hermès Birkin. The number of Chanel stores globally will even go down further, but flagship stores will triple in size as secondary locations close. The purchase experience will be by invitation only, and this would be standard for high-value pieces. You don't walk in and buy a $20,000 bag. You're invited to purchase based on spending history. Your relationship with the brand determines access. This mirrors Hermès' model. Want a Birkin? You don't request one. You build a purchase history, buying other items, demonstrate loyalty, and eventually, maybe a sales associate offers you the opportunity to purchase. Chanel is moving toward identical mechanics. Quotas are step 1. Reduced store count is step 2. Invitation-only purchasing is step 3. The economics drive this trajectory. When your product costs $11,300 and rising, you need fewer, wealthier customers, not more middle-income ones. Ultra-wealthy buyers don't comparison shop, don't wait for sales, don't negotiate. They buy at asking price, often multiple pieces per visit. Middle-income buyers research extensively, save carefully, and buy once every few years. Servicing them costs more and generates less revenue. So luxury brands are choosing, and they're choosing fewer, wealthier customers. The K-shaped economy accelerates this. The gap between the ultra-wealthy and everyone else widens annually. The middle class shrinks. Luxury brands are positioning for a world where there is no middle, only ultra-wealthy and mass market, with nothing between. Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermès, Dior will serve the ultra-wealthy. Coach, Kate Spade, Michael Kors will serve the mass market. The gap in the middle where Chanel used to operate? Disappearing. But even within ultra-luxury, positioning matters. And here's where Chanel's strategy reveals both brilliance and risk. Hermès already owns the ultra-luxury handbag space. Birkins and Kellys trade at $15,000 to $400,000, depending on materials and rarity. Annual production is approximately 12,000 Birkins globally. Waitlists stretch years. The scarcity is real, backed by genuine artisan craftsmanship, where one artisan spends 18 to 25 hours hand-stitching each bag. Chanel produces 1.2 million handbags annually. They're manufactured, not handcrafted. Quality has declined according to longtime customers. Yet Chanel is pushing prices toward Hermès levels while maintaining industrial production. That's a dangerous positioning. You can't be both mass-produced and ultra-exclusive. Hermès succeeds because scarcity is structural. They physically cannot make more bags. Chanel's scarcity is artificial. They choose not to make bags available despite having capacity. Customers aren't stupid. They recognize the difference, which explains why, as Chanel raised prices 95% since 2019, Hermès's brand value surpassed LVMH's market cap for the first time. Hermès gained market share during the same period Chanel's profits fell 30%. The risk for Chanel: if you price like Hermès while producing mass luxury, you're overpriced by definition. And once customers realize that gap, brand value collapses. Louis Vuitton navigates this differently. They acknowledge the volume problem and split the brand. Monogram canvas. Mass luxury, high volume, accessible. Special orders and high jewelry. Ultra luxury, genuine scarcity, controlled access. Dior took a similar approach. Lady Dior is a mass luxury. Haute couture and high jewelry, ultra luxury. 5 years from now, luxury means something different than it did in 2020. Not just expensive products, permission-based access, controlled scarcity, explicit social filtering. You don't buy Chanel because you can afford it. You buy Chanel because you're allowed to. And that allowance depends on factors beyond money: geography, purchase history, brand relationship, and increasingly, social positioning. The biggest luxury shift isn't happening on the runway. It's happening behind closed doors in C-suite meetings where brands decide how few customers they can serve while maximizing profit. And the answer is far fewer than anyone wants to admit. What nobody wants to say. Here's the part luxury executives discuss privately, but never publicly. The middle-class luxury customer was always a problem. They're price-sensitive. They research extensively. They wait for better deals. They buy pre-owned. They complain about quality inconsistencies. They return products. They post negative reviews when disappointed. They require the most customer service and generate the least profit per interaction. Ultra-wealthy customers, they buy immediately, often multiple items. They don't return products. They don't complain about the price. They upgrade to higher-tier pieces without prompting. They're loyal, uncritical, and extremely profitable. Luxury brands tolerated middle-class customers during growth phases when expansion mattered. But now, growth hit limits. China's demand collapsed, US spending softened, Europe stagnated. When you can't grow revenue through volume, you grow through pricing. And when you grow through pricing, you lose price-sensitive customers. Chanel isn't just accepting that loss. They're engineering it, accelerating it. The store closures, price increases, and purchase quotas are systematically designed to filter out anyone who can't or won't pay premium prices without hesitation. It's working despite Chanel profits dropping. That's not a failure signal. It's a transition signal. Short-term pain while the customer base resets to higher-value buyers. Once the reset completes, Chanel will have fewer customers, fewer stores, and higher profits per customer. The brand will be more exclusive, more expensive, and more profitable than ever. But it requires accepting that millions of customers who thought they were the target market weren't. They were transitional customers, stepping stones on the path to ultra-luxury positioning. And now Chanel is stepping over them. The calm, chilling reality. Chanel isn't dying. Chanel isn't struggling. Chanel isn't desperate. Chanel is evolving. But not everyone is invited to the next phase. The stores closing in secondary markets, those served customers Chanel no longer wants. The price increases pushing bags toward $20,000, those eliminate buyers Chanel no longer values. The quotas limiting purchases, those filter out anyone treating luxury as accessible. This is brand elevation executed with surgical precision. Every decision removes access for one segment while concentrating luxury for another. The luxury future is fewer stores, higher prices, stricter access, and deliberate exclusion. Not through explicit discrimination, luxury brands are too sophisticated for that, but through design, through geography, through pricing, through scarcity mechanics that make access itself a luxury. And here's the thought that should unsettle you. When luxury brands stop chasing you, when they stop advertising accessibility, when they stop pretending you're the customer, that's when you realize who the market was really for all along. It wasn't for the person saving $200 a month to afford a classic piece. It wasn't for the young professional marking a milestone. It wasn't for the family who views Chanel as the pinnacle of what success looks like. It was for the person who never had to ask the price, who never had to save, who never had to wait. For them, nothing has changed. Chanel stores are still accessible, more exclusive, more refined, more theatrical than ever. For everyone else, the doors are closing, quietly, without announcement, without apology. And by the time you notice, the definition of luxury will have shifted so completely that what used to be aspirational is now simply forbidden. What do you think of Chanel's store closures? Let me know in the comments. Also, tell me what you'll like me to cover next as you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more.